Hi, I'm John Miglosh with the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Well, in international news, oh man, it was a little bit heartbreaking for me, I have to say, that we had the burning of Notre Cathedral. And I heard this on the morning talk show radio on the way in. I have like a 5-minute commute, but I do listen anyway. And here's the interior by the altar, and apparently the cross is still there, and that is amazing. So, at least it seems like it is to me. So my condolences to the French people, and obviously there's some that is left to be salvaged. I knew that would do that to me. I shouldn't have done it. What can I say, right? But let's go on. Okay, and this is maybe a fitting connector that as humans we're obsessed with youth, and yet most of the value is in the older stuff. When I started in marketing and advertising, I was in my 20s and speaking at national conventions, having had no marketing experience whatsoever. I got pulled into customs in the Bahamas because I laughed, as I said. They asked me my occupation. I said, marketing consultant. And I started to laugh, because who should listen to a 27-year-old with no business experience or business schooling? Neither. But direct marketing was a heyday thing, and most people didn't know what it was and were interested. It was a little like the digital revolution of the 90s and beyond. And I can say most people still don't know what direct marketing means, and most people don't know the implications of digital either. But I built my first website in 1995, and I'm reconnecting with the first guy I ever saw speak that on how the internet would be a mainly commercial avenue. Anyway, this is a really good article. Thank you, Ryan. I will connect with you later. It says, if you work in advertising and you're over 35, you can expect to be called old. Okay, I'm exaggerating. It's actually more like 30. And you'll be regarded with bemusement, suspicion, if not outright contempt. I have to say, when I was in my, I got into the ad agency at about 34, something like that, because I started my business at 33. And I was one of the younger guys in my agency, but that's Milwaukee. But, now they say that you have to be a digital native. Yeah, we potty trained my son with the computer time. It was the only thing he really wanted to do. And he doesn't know that much more about computers than I do, because he just uses them. And that doesn't tell you how they came to be. When you have older people involved in creating ads, when you don't have older people involved in creating ads, those ads don't cater to older people. But people over 50 account for 60% of all car sales. Now, that isn't that big a skew, to be honest. Think about it. But I don't know what percentage are over 50. It seemed to me it was about 25%, something like that. So, yeah, so I guess it is. It's at least 200% index. And, and when was the last time you saw a car ad that showed an old guy? So I think I bought 7 Lexuses. I like the LSs, and my wife likes the RXs. And their commercials have really completely lost me. In both age, demographics, and everything. And the cars, too. They've cheapened them up, made them, I bought mine from Lexus, a Brookfield sales manager, directly, and he said, this is the finest car that Lexus ever made. It's a 2000. It's which we'll get to in the next article. We'll talk about car ownership. In other industries, people over 50 are consulted for their wisdom. People over 50 aren't creative enough to write a banner ad, but they're creative enough to dominate Nobel Prizes, Pulitzers, Oscars, and Emmys. That's because old guys vote on the stuff. Everyone over 50 in advertising is great on the basis of survivorship bias. Okay, so that means I must be great because I've been around all these years. I like that line. That's why I highlighted it. But I think there is something to it. I told you, in fact, the vest I have on is from that client that hired me to go down in the basement and talk with the 6 digital natives that were running their digital division. Excuse me. And spending about $2 million a year on digital. This wasn't a big company. That was almost 10% of sales right there. And they looked at me with a straight face, these digitals, and said, but our revenue more than exceeds our ad spend. And I tried to explain to them about cost of goods and overhead, and I still don't think they got it. But the worst was when I got back to the office, we took the data and we looked at the value just 6 months after acquisition, or basically we took a class, a year. Okay, people acquired in 2009. What were they worth in the next 6 months in profit? It's a pretty simple analysis, really easy. And then we took 2012, which is what this was. And of course, 2009 was terrible. It was a low point for most of us, most of my clients in terms of their customer spend. But we used it anyway. And it turned out that the customers acquired in 2008 spent 4 times in 2009 what the customers in 2012 spent in 2013. So not only didn't they understand business at all, zero, I would say. Zero understanding of business, but they also were acquiring terrible customers. They were destroying the brand, and eventually that client switched, pivoted, that's the word, pivoted into business to business instead of consumer because of the devastation that those basically 3 young people unleashed on their company. So watch out if there's no old guys in the mix. Ignoring the value of experience carries an opportunity cost. Absolutely. Absolutely. Experience and expertise are incredibly time and cost efficient. I can tell you what to do next. Or not. Because I've been through it. And you could make hugely more money by asking an old guy than by hiring a bunch of callous, hubris-filled young people. So it'll pay off. Okay. This was an interesting article by Helen Edwards. And what it said was, it explained the U-curve, which I hadn't heard about. First identified by economists David Blanchflower and Andrew Oswald, who I bet were older than 30. Anyway, happiness is at the 2 extremes and slumps in the middle in life. 20-somethings and 70-somethings are doing okay. Their lives are giving them satisfaction. I think that's funny. Think about the stages of car ownership. Yeah, you get it. It's shiny and new. And then it's just your car. And then it's vintage. Like my car is approaching 300,000 miles. And I have to race to the emissions testing after this so that I get it done while the check engine light isn't on. Sorry, but so I take great delight in that car, and it just glides at 100 miles an hour. Don't ask me where I've driven 100 miles an hour or how often I do. Yeah, take that, you Lexus commercials. You buy those hot rod little lightweight jobs and try to drive them 100 miles an hour. They'll shake themselves to death. The first rule has to be, don't make these people's lives trickier. This is really profound. I hate that it's coming at the end, okay? Brands neglect the simple things of responding to emails sent to their publishing info at addresses. Brands neglect shipping quality merchandise at value prices. Why do you think Amazon Prime is so popular? Do you think it's because they've segmented every possible person on earth and know just what to say to them? They don't. It, it still says, people who bought this item also bought. There's no implication that you might buy it. It's just stuff. We thought, okay, we'll show you some more stuff. Would you like some fries with that? You know, you don't ask the person behind the counter if they're taller than 6'3", you might want to ask, would you like jumbo fries? If they're little, you might want to ask, would you like an ice cream cone? You don't make it that complicated. You could. It might even work. But instead, McDonald's is buying spending $30 million on a sign company to try to guess what I want when I know what I want when I come in. If I wanted to think about the signage, I'd go to Burger King where I don't have a clue what to order, or Dairy Queen or something. Anyway, this goes on. This is great. The trend in our industry right now is for micro-targeting, but sometimes it pays to look at a mass middle section of the whole and seek to get under its skin and serve it better. Add to the sum of human happiness. Yes, that's why Amazon is so popular. Out there, you brands, it's because they ship decent stuff fast. It's not the lowest price. It's not the best quality, mostly. It's kind of average stuff that you can get in a hurry with mindlessly simple processes. I've just boiled down 90% of marketing. 49% of Gen Xers, this is great, feel stalled in their career, thwarted by boomers who can't afford to retire. That's like me. I could afford to, but what fun is that? I do this every day. I look forward to it. Boomers who can't afford to retire and threatened by the prospect of leapfrogging millennials. I don't worry so much about those young people. We just talked about that. But that phrasing was great. This is great. That 49% of Gen X, I'm going to have to chop that out of here. In midlife, what I see in my Gen X patients is total exhaustion. And she's speaking especially about women. Choices don't make life easier. Possibilities create pressure. And I feel for women because I think they have been duped. I think I made my first baguettes last night. And they came out really well. I should post a picture, but it's a good picture. But, you know, they've given up the joy of baking to take on corporate politics. It's like, you know, you lost that deal. My wife worked at home. You know, she didn't work outside the home while the kids were getting. And I think she got a pretty good deal. I don't know that she thinks so. She'd rather we had a bigger retirement fund. Anyway, that's enough for today. Think about old people. Target them. Talbots, they didn't like their customer persona of 60-plus women, year old women, and they just stopped mailing, and they stopped everything, and they went after the young people, and they went bankrupt. And when the new buyer came in, they said, "Why did we stop mailing the catalog?" And everybody said, "We didn't like the persona." God help us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.